Hey everyone, this is Mike from the Comic Book Trove. Here today with another Omnibus review. Today, quite a special one really for me as a huge X-Men fan. Thought I would take a look at what is probably, well, maybe the most significant X-Men material, X-Men Omnibus, that there is out there. At least, well, perhaps only second to the original Silver Age run, just because that created the X-Men. But I'm talking, of course, about the Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 1. Just unbelievably iconic cover of Giant Size X-Men number 1 from 1975 there on the front, and just absolutely, well, classic iconic stuff. Don't really know how else to describe it really. Take a look on the back, you get quite a lot of issues in here. It's basically, you know, for anyone unaware, it's the first chunk of Chris Claremont's run, and in here you get, well, a lot of the collaboration between Chris Claremont and John Byrne, which was, you know, exceptional in its own right. But in here you've got Giant Size X-Men number 1, of course, and the X-Men issues 94 to 131. This is before it was officially called Uncanny X-Men, and Annual 3. So in here you get just about everything written by Chris Claremont, other than Giant Size, which was written by Len Wein. And the art is mostly by initially Dave Cockrum and then John Byrne, who of course was also inked very notably by Terry Austin. And this stuff is just so good. I'm going to just praise this to heaven and back again. But yeah, so I think at the moment this book sadly is out of print. However, there've been a few printings of it, and you know, it is just about some of the most iconic Marvel material that there's ever been. So even with it being out of print at the moment, with the way that Marvel have been lately with reprinting so many popular books, I feel like it won't be too long until it comes back around again. But I don't know, maybe it's not even too hard to get for a difficult price on places like eBay, I don't know for sure. But anyway, it's something that if you don't have it, I really hope you get a chance to get it at some point. This is just seminal stuff that I think every comic fan should read at some point if they get the chance. But Giant Size X-Men number 1, yeah. So, you know, a bit of background here. I think it's pretty well known, but I'll summarize it anyway. That during the Silver Age, the initial run of the X-Men, the series, you know, amazingly by today's standards you wouldn't think, but it really wasn't selling well. Ended up being cancelled in 1970, I think. And then between 1970 and 1975, no new X-Men material was published, just reprints of previously released issues, and the characters would pop up now and then in other series like Avengers or Spider-Man or whatever. But no new X-Men comics specifically until 1975, when they took a chance on it and came up with this Giant Size X-Men number 1, which ended up being the only Giant Size issue, but thankfully not the only new X-Men issue. And the whole gist of this is Professor Xavier puts together a new team, the Uncanny team. So in here you get first appearances of Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Wolverine, not his first appearance, but it's him joining the X-Men. So in a way it's almost a first appearance really. It's kind of what I consider to be the first significant Wolverine appearance anyway. And yeah, it's just a fantastic story. It's, you know, it's got everything you'd expect. You get origins for each of these characters, origins which of course over the years would be further explored and defined by Claremont as he gained more and more familiarity in the many years he would spend writing these characters. But for me, it all starts off perfectly strong right from the very beginning. As at the end of at the end of Giant Size X-Men number 1, you've effectively got your new status quo with that new team established, and then the Uncanny series, or just called X-Men at that point, but I always call it Uncanny, so yeah, I'm going to probably use the two terms. So X-Men issue 94, and this was where the series resumed. So between issues 67 and 93, those were reprints, but thankfully 94 came along. Giant Size X-Men are doing well enough that they you know, Marvel decided they were going to gamble and keep going with the series again and publish it regularly. So that's what you get here. You know, it's the earliest adventures of this new team, this then new team. with Claremont coming on as of this issue and taking the reins. And you know, it's kind of amazing just to be able to read these issues now, and you know, just be going and go right back to the very beginning of such a long, you know, series defining run that was Claremont's run. To be able to read it from the very beginning, and these, you know, these kinds of old, beautifully restored comics, to me, that's what the omnibus format has always been about. That's the big appeal of it to me. That's what I've loved about it ever since I started getting into this hobby. This is one of the first books I ever picked up, you know, in terms of omnibus. And yeah, I've just always loved it. I've loved the fact that I can get collections of these classic, iconic runs in these beautiful big books, and just read through them. It's just pure joy for me. But you know, the artwork in here, the Dave Cockrum stuff, I really like that. But I've got to say, the real highlight is when you get to the John Byrne stuff. You know, Byrne and Austin working together as artists created quite possibly my favourite ever artwork in any comic ever. You know, that's how highly I rate it. That's how much I really like it. But lots of iconic stuff happens in here, not least of which you get the first appearance of Phoenix. You know, Jean Grey becoming the Phoenix for the first time. So a lot of this stuff, you know, there's so much going on in these issues, and if you've read any Claremont stuff before, you will know that he likes to write. You know, he's got a bit of a reputation for being a very wordy writer. In fact, some of the things that I've seen, probably the biggest thing actually that I've seen people say that they struggle with when trying to read this run right from the beginning like this, is just how wordy Claremont tends to be. You know, and I kind of understand that. He certainly likes to write. But I don't know. It definitely takes longer to read through issues like this than more modern issues by other writers. But for me, that's never been an issue. It might be something that bothers you, and if so, fair enough. I'll point it out for that reason. But oh wow, love this one. This splash page here. But this is the story arc here, issue 100. What's basically going on is the X-Men have been sort of abducted. They're in space, and they're fighting kind of robot cyborg versions of the original X-Men team. In the end, they come literally crashing back to Earth, and Jean Grey sort of sacrifices herself, seemingly, to save the others. But of course, she doesn't die, yet. She emerges as Phoenix, classic issue at 101. Just so much history in these pages, really. This is just fantastic, and I've always loved that costume design as well. The green and gold and yellow, such great costume design. And Phoenix, such a cool character. You know, it's a shame really that. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's a shame that I think she wasn't able to just be Phoenix for longer. I don't know, but I kind of like the era where she's Phoenix before it all culminates in the Dark Phoenix saga. But as I say, that's down the line. I'm getting ahead of myself. You know, plenty of good stuff though. Clash here with Juggernaut and Black Tom Cassidy. I think this is the issue where Wolverine's name is kind of almost as just like a total side point in the issue. Some random character, I think it's a leprechaun, actually refers to Wolverine by the name of Logan. That's the first time he's ever called Logan on the page. I think it's this issue anyway. But yeah, just so many iconic stuff. Iconic stories, iconic issues. And you know, I love the well, I've already touched on it, but the ongoing kind of story arc with Phoenix that runs as kind of a subplot throughout the entire run, as from the moment she appears as Phoenix. She's becoming more and more powerful. She doesn't know why she's that powerful. The others don't know why she's so powerful. And it's kind of it's raising suspicions and concerns about her as to where all this power has come from. But all of a sudden she's basically the most powerful member of the team, where historically, you know, back in the Silver Age, Jean Grey had never really had any significant power. Which reminds me a lot of the Invisible Woman, actually. Back in Silver Age Fantastic Four, she was also quite easily the weakest member of the team, and she would go on to become pretty much the strongest. It's very similar to that. But getting to the point now where 107, this issue, I think, is the final issue of Dave Cockrum's run as the artist. Get the introduction of the Starjammers. They would go on to be very frequent recurring characters with a strong connection to the X-Men, as this guy here, Corsair, the leader of the Starjammers, who are a bunch of space pirates, basically, if you're not sure about them. He turns out to be Scott Summers, Cyclops' dad. And, you know, obviously his brother as well, Alex Summers, Havoc. So he's their dad. But they don't learn that for some time after this. Quite a while, actually. I don't think he learns it either. But anyway, getting sidetracked. I think here... Yep. Didn't want to miss this, but issue 108 is where John Byrne and Terry Austin come on, start doing the artwork, and from this point onwards, as good as Dave Cockrum's art is, the art just starts to get better and better for me as of this stage. It, I almost just want to let it speak for itself, you know, and just let you look at it. If you aren't already familiar with this run, I realise I'm talking about a run here that is incredibly famous, beloved, and you know, just so seminal that, I don't know, I almost feel like everybody seeing this will know something about it already without me telling you all these things. But it's just so good. Like, it's such a good read. You know, it's no, even as you read through this now, it's generally such good stuff that it's easy to see why it quickly became Marvel's best-selling title at the time. But yeah, it's really from this point onwards, you know, the every page, almost every panel, just looks so good. Now, I'm admittedly a big John Byrne fan, so will fully admit that perhaps there's a lot of bias in me praising this artwork as much as I am doing, but I'm not going to in any way you know, try and diminish the impact of Terry Austin on the work, because I would say that you know, even being a John Byrne fan and enjoying his work on, you know, the series he did after X-Men, I don't think his artwork ever looked as good as it did during these issues. So I have to put a lot of that down to the inking by Terry Austin. This issue was the new Uncanny team's first encounter with Magneto, and it turns out to be quite literally an explosive encounter in the end. And as of the end of this issue, actually, for pretty much the first time, but far from the last time, during Claremont's run, part of the X-Men team are believed to be dead. So they get separated from each other after this showdown with Magneto. And yeah, so the ones who, love this stuff. These specific panels here, I just want to show this off. So yeah, with a big kind of explosion in the end, the Beast and Phoenix end up getting separated from the rest of the team. They escape, find themselves in the snow. They're in Antarctica. And the rest of the team, look at how amazing that looks, seriously. That's so good. The rest of the team find their way down below Antarctica to the Savage Land. And those members down there, here they are, going into the Savage Land. It's these ones who are believed to be dead by Beast and Phoenix. But as I said, definitely not the last time that would happen. The X-Men have a way of dying without dying, definitely. But this is a really cool story, fantastic artwork again, this page here, unbelievably well drawn. Just look at it. Beautiful, absolutely stunning. And this is a character called Sauron, but not the one who wants his ring back. Pterodactyl Man would be the best way. Look at this again. I can't even help. But that is just fantastic. I'm just staring at it right now, getting distracted. So he was a human. He turns into this pterodactyl thing. I think he'd first appeared in the Silver Age. Definitely not one of the best villains, in my opinion, but it's all good fun. It's all full of drama. But I can't say enough good things about this artwork, and I'm at a loss for words, really. But this is a good issue. What Claremont would do throughout his run, and this is a good example of it, was he would, regularly take the opportunities to develop and explore the kind of backstory and the past of different characters. And this issue serves as a good example of that. So it delves into primarily Professor X's past, when he was a younger man, and he was touring Cairo, Egypt, and he had an encounter with kind of an evil telepath of equivalent power to his own, a guy called the Shadow King. And also, by coincidence, if you believe in coincidence, he comes across a young child, Aurora Monroe. But this guy here, this is the Shadow King, and again he would definitely be back in the series after this. He came back for at least 2 more, I'd say, notable encounters as a foe of the X-Men. This is an issue where the X-Men are in Japan, and they team up with a character called Sunspot, I think. He had originally been introduced in Giant Size issue 1 as a potential X-Men team member, but it's not Sunspot, no, that's one of the New Mutants. Sunfire is his actual name. How did I possibly make that mistake? So he'd originally appeared in that issue, but he had immediately left the team, just kind of said, "No, this isn't for me." But he is basically Japan's main superhero in this, at this point in the Marvel universe anyway. And then you've got Logan, who's got his own connections to Japan, although again that wouldn't really be explored until later on. It's kind of funny to read these early issues and find myself saying things like Wolverine's connection to Japan, because Claremont just wrote this stuff for so long that it can be difficult to be reading the early stuff and be thinking, oh yeah, that hasn't happened yet. Oh yeah, the introduction of Alpha Flight though. So kind of Canada's super team, kind of Canada's Avengers sort of thing. Created in these issues to initially just be a team who could give the X-Men a fight. Their whole connection to the team is that Wolverine was a part of their organisation, but he had quit to join the X-Men back in Giant Size 1. Canadian government's not pleased about that, so they send Alpha Flight to go and forcefully retrieve him, basically. This leads to a fight between the X-Men and Alpha Flight, and the X-Men win the day, pretty much. But this is Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight would spin off into their own series out of X-Men, and that series would be initially written and drawn by John Byrne. That's got its own omnibus as well. That is also out of print at the moment, but I might do a review on that at some point. If you're interested in that, feel free to let me know. I can do that. But they're a fun team, I think, and they, first appeared here. Throughout the book as well, you get a lot of these. I mentioned Claremont likes to write, and you get a lot of these kind of introductions to different sections of the book by Claremont himself that he's written in the past for other books collecting this material. And those are very interesting to read as well, as he kind of explains the context behind his decisions to, do what he did with the series at the time, etc. Getting to the point here where Jean Grey starts being targeted by this mystery man here. Identifies himself as Jason Wingard. Keeps popping up, and she's developing confusing feelings for him. That story will develop and culminate a few issues after this. And then you get this guy, Arcade. And I saw a comment by somebody on Facebook or somewhere who basically said, whenever you see stories featuring Arcade, you know you're going to be in for some bullshit. And I think that's one of the most accurate quotes I've ever seen relating to comics anyway, because Arcade issues are just bizarre. He's got his own kind of murder-themed theme park where he just takes people and kills them in bizarre games of death. It's interesting as a novelty. I quite like it in this issue, but only really because this was the first time it happened. As it starts to happen every time he turns up after this in comics, and it's just the same basic thing every time, you realise he's just such a gimmick villain. Such a one-trick pony of a character. But I'm not going to argue here, because you get some, as I've said about 76 times at this point, some fantastic artwork. There isn't a page of this run with this Byrne and Austin artwork that I don't think is just great. Then you get an annual. Can't really remember this one. But basically, it's like this warlord guy. He's like a warlord from another planet, Conan-style character. And I don't know. It's something with him. But Phoenix story here developing. We're getting close now to that Dark Phoenix run. And you can see, she's being. What's basically happening is she's being manipulated by the villain Mastermind. That's who Wingard turns out to be. And he's just trying to sort of bring her under his spell, so to speak. But before we get there, we get this story. The Proteus Saga focuses on Moira McTaggart, who is a long-time ally of the X-Men. Her son is a mutant, a very dangerous mutant. He basically takes over people's bodies, he possesses them, and he literally drains their body of life. He uses their body like a battery, and as soon as they run out of life force or energy or whatever, he has to jump into another body, and leaves them as a husk. So he's, obviously a deadly force. And the X-Men have got to try and put a stop to him. And at this point in the run, it's like things are so fast-paced. You've got this Proteus story. This goes straight into the Dark Phoenix saga without losing a breath. Then, you know, almost no sooner is Dark Phoenix Saga done than you jump into Days of Future Past. That's in volume 2, but, you know, even so, it's just so much going on so quickly. So many great stories are just coming like thick and fast. You know, it's just such a fantastic collaboration between Claremont and Byrne in terms of plotting the stories. But of course, you know, they didn't get on. You know, that's the funny thing. Despite producing such quality as you see in here, you know, behind the scenes, they weren't really getting on well, and you know, that's ultimately why Byrne left the book quite abruptly in the end. He wanted to go away and do his own thing because he was just getting frustrated working on this series. Yeah, introduction of Kitty Pryde here, you know, another hugely significant moment. Character who would go on to become a key member of the team in years since. And issue 130, yeah, this is really where the Dark Phoenix saga starts to kick off, and kind of weirdly, this book sort of ends right in the middle of the Dark Phoenix saga. First appearance of the White Queen, Emma Frost, and the Hellfire Club in general in here. Jean Grey as the Black Queen. Always enjoyed that costume, not gonna lie. And yeah, so you know, it's just all happening at this point, really. This is one of the most famous, incredible, fantastic stories in all of comics, really, to this day. Holds up as a fantastically good read. Yeah, it's the Dark Phoenix saga. What more do I need to say? One of the, interestingly enough, a bit of trivia about me, one of the very first comics I ever read was a trade paperback collection of the Dark Phoenix saga that my dad bought for me when I was a kid. So before I'd read any other X-Men, I had read these issues. And I loved it. You know, even without the context then of any of the issues that had built up to this, just going straight in and reading this stuff, it was like, I don't know, some of the most exciting stuff I'd ever seen. But, you know, it all just ends here. And you kind of left on a cliffhanger. You got to get volume 2 to see how the Dark Phoenix saga ends if you want to read it in omnibus format. Not really a problem if you have volume 2, but if you just have this book, or if you just have volume 2 and not this book, kind of frustrating that you can't read the full thing. You're missing part of it. But, you know, some really cool extras here in the back. These are like character designs and also instructions by Dave Cockrum. He's kind of annotating his artwork with guidelines for any other artist as to how you draw it. With my favourite annotation being here about Nightcrawler. The tail is connected to the base of the spine. It does not grow out of his ass. I love that. But yeah, quite a lot of extras, standard stuff, lots of sketch work in here, which is always good to see. Issues of classic X-Men. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've even done this book justice as I've covered it here today and talked about it. It's just such a seminal run. Now, for me, it's must read. I know people sometimes struggle with early X-Men, with early Claremont run, early Claremont, and his run on the. I can't speak. When it comes to these early issues of Claremont's run, yeah, we'll go with that. It's obviously very wordy stuff. It's very dated by modern standards in terms of the style. But if you push through, if you make it to, round about the start of where John Byrne comes in, I think from then point onwards, the momentum picks up, the stories get better and better as it goes on. And really from that point on, for the rest of Claremont's run, for me, there isn't really much of a weak point. There's moments where obviously it's not all as good as everything else, but for the most part, it's kicked into a higher gear by that point and it just gets better and better. Anyway, thanks guys for watching this and for persisting, and hopefully be back soon with another video.